going on? What's going on, everybody? It's your host, Junkyard James. You see the setup change a little bit here, going green a little bit tonight, because I got the green light to go off on some people. Um, Welcome to another episode of the Junkyard. Before I go in, take a look at the link in the bio and the description for the merch link to the best, worst wrestling podcast in all of the industry. And speaking of that, I'm going in on the industry today. And more importantly, not the men and women that go behind the scenes and are the performers, but the fans. Going in on the fans. And the state of wrestling is quite honestly, in my opinion, difficult to understand. I remember in 2017 when I went to WrestleMania, just this feeling of in a general sense that all wrestling fans could come together regardless of religious creed or nationality or ethnicity or gender or whatever, that we could all come together and enjoy watching pro wrestling for 6 hours. And that was it made me fall in love with wrestling going to WrestleMania. And I feel like you can't do that anymore. That wrestling has become really divided, and there's two camps, and there's one camp in particular that I feel like separated from the main camp of wrestling fans, and I got a scathing review for them, and they call themselves casual fans, and I'm gonna say my piece today. I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible because I really don't want to have to make this. And I really didn't want to make it, but I just have so much on my head. So I'll make this as short as possible. And then once I'm done saying this, I'm done talking about it. And we'll move on to our regularly scheduled broadcast. We'll have the Junkyard as regularly scheduled. Like I said in the description, this is a YouTube or a Facebook live stream exclusive. This isn't going on the audio podcast formats. This is I'm gonna say my piece and I'm gonna get out and then I'm done. Before we get started though, feel free to like, comment, share this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. Make sure you know when we go live, either if I go live on this channel or if we go live with the Calling Audibles podcast here on the Junkyard Media group. But let's get going. So there's this group of fans who say that they're so-called casual wrestling fans. And I hate that term. I hate the term IWC. I hate the term casual wrestling community because in my opinion, we're just all wrestling fans. I don't give a shit if you are and you watch every single episode of every single show every single week in all the pay-per-views. Or if you're just a singular person who watches Monday Night Raw quietly and nobody knows that you watch WWE or AEW or whatever. We're all wrestling fans. But these so-called casual fans, they sit here and they whine and they complain and they talk about how no one in the so-called IWC or the internet wrestling community allows them to speak, allows them to hold an opinion, and they always argue with them and get in fights with them because they just disagree with the IWC, or the IWC doesn't allow them a space because they hold a different opinion. And I have a different view on this. I don't think the IWC really gives a shit if you share your opinion or not. They just give a shit that you don't act like you're the victim when your opinion is, pressed or tested. See, I think for me to see the state of the wrestling industry, especially with fans, I have to go back in my own mind to where I came from as a wrestling fan. And the industry several years ago, 2017, 2018, before AEW existed, it seemed like wrestling fans were all in agreement that WWE was like shit product, very boring, and they needed to rejuvenate themselves. And yet here we are in 2023, and they've done that, and so we should be all happy that WWE has rejuvenated themselves. And yet there's these fans that now, because the WWE is rejuvenated, they have to pick on second place. They have to pick on somebody. And who do they pick on? And they pick on AEW, and they pick on Kenny Omega. And they purposely have views that are contradicting to, I guess what you could say is mainstream, just for the fuck of it, so that they can have a differing opinion. Like, so the argument for the last couple of weeks has been that AEW needs to have rules in place to make sure that their product is safe. And I understand that we want to make sure that these performers are safe. But they give this feeling that they actually give a shit if a performer is healthy at the end of the day. Like, they really care about Kenny Omega's health long term. That they really care that when Kenny Omega retires, that bullshit. I'm going to call bullshit on that. They don't give a shit if Kenny Omega lives past 54 or 20 or 39 or however old he is now. If Kenny Omega died in 30 years, they wouldn't give a shit. They let him get his 10-bell salute and then pass right on by. Or if Kenny Omega did die at 60 for some reason due to something that he did in his previous career, they'd go and they say, I told you Kenny Omega's life was going to be cut short. They don't care about Kenny Omega's health. They just want to be right. They just want to have an opinion that is controversial for the fact that it can be controversial. And I think that it's destroying the wrestling community. It's making wrestling not fun for a lot of fans. And it's destroying the reputation of wrestling fans. See, you have to understand. Again, like I said, in 2017, when I went to WrestleMania, I felt there was some sort of similarity, that we were all there for the same reason, which is to watch wrestling, to watch the best performers in the world perform on the grandest stage of all, and it's still the grandest stage of all. But yet now we're sitting in here, maybe it's because social media has been so prevalent that it's just easier now to have arguments. And see, here's one thing. It's like, we can discuss who's the greatest of all time is. We can discuss who the best of the current era is. But that's not what's going on. It's fans attacking fans. And the point of being a wrestling fan is to be entertained by the entertainers. It's a circus act. It's not that serious. And yet I think the biggest reason why the IWC, the so-called IWC, hates or is not accepting of the people of the so-called CWC is because they're hypocrites. The CWC is hypocrites because they say that they're a casual fan, but yet casual fans don't have podcasts talking about a product. Casual fans don't live stream shows. Casual fans don't set up TikToks and Twitter pages and Discord channels to talk about pro wrestling. That's not what it means to be a casual fan. To be a casual fan is to just be someone who goes in, watches wrestling, and then just doesn't say shit about it. And they like, and the people in this so-called casual community likes to sit here and say that these hardcore fans, all they give a fuck about is wrestling, and that's what they give, they spend the entirety of their life doing, and yet they place me in that group, and yet I can barely watch a Dynamite live. I haven't caught Collision live since week 1. I haven't watched a Rampage in 5 weeks. This week was the first week I watched Dynamite live in like a month. I have shit that I got to do just like everybody else. And yet they call me a casual or a hardcore fan because I sit there and I disagree with their opinion about Kenny Omega in the ring. They call me a cult member. They call everybody that supports AEW a cult member because they sit here and they won't take the continuous bashing of something that they enjoy watching. And yet our response is, if you don't like it, just turn the damn channel. And goddamn us to hell for giving them that answer, because that's not acceptable to them. And yet they're the biggest hypocrites of all, because they sit there and they mope and they cry on their podcast, and they mope and they cry on their TikTok channels that nobody listens to our opinions, and that every time we disagree with the IWC, we get canceled on TikTok. And yet you're trying to do the same exact fucking thing to the people that you disagree with. And so I'm here to say that my opinion on the wrestling fan is, I don't give a fuck what side of the fence you're on. If you're the most dedicated fan that goes to every indie show in the state you live in, or if you're just the most uber casual, I just watch the pay-per-views and watch the clips on YouTube fan, we all are wrestling fans, and we all should agree that wrestling is for everyone. And that everyone should enjoy the wrestling and to the capacity that they like. And thank God that there are multiple different flavors of pro wrestling, and not just one stale-ass vanilla flavor that goes from WWE to AEW to Impact Wrestling to X, Y, and Z. Because I remember, growing up, I watched WWE very briefly as a child. And yet, in middle school and about until my junior year of high school, I just never watched wrestling. I knew who Cena was and Punk was and who some of the wrestlers were, but I didn't pay attention like intently. And then I had a friend who got me involved in pro wrestling again and watching WWE. And we went to an Impact show, Bound for Glory, their WrestleMania, live in front of like 2,000 fans in small ass Cabarrus Arena in Concord, North Carolina. And it was their biggest pay-per-view event of that year. And we went and we got ringside seats, and it was just a great time. And then I fell in love with WWE Network version Black and Gold NXT and Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch and Charlotte when they were growing up, and Alexa Bliss and Blake and Murphy and the Vowed Villains and Enzo and Cass in the tag team division, and FTR, which at that point was called the Revival, and tag team wrestling was great, and the singles competition was great. And I fell in love with wrestling, and yet goddamn me to hell, because I say Kenny Omega should be allowed to do whatever move he wants to do as long as he has consent from his doctor. If he thinks he can do the move, then let him do it. And if he injures himself, that is, he understands stepping in foot of that ring and doing that match and doing that move that he could injure himself, and if he's okay with facing that reality, then who am I as a fan to question his motive? See, I was talking to my brother because he's one of these people in this casual community, and he said, and I use this analogy. You watch a basketball game, and Steph Curry's playing, Golden State Warriors are playing, and Steph Curry has the ball, and he's infamous for his 3-point shooting, but yet this game that you're watching, he missed every 3-pointer that he tried to shoot. And he missed them badly. And you complain. You have the right as a fan of that team, as a fan of wrestling, to complain about the result of his poor shooting. You can go on Twitter and you can go on TikTok and you can go on Facebook or wherever the fuck you want to go and say Steph Curry had a fucking bad game. And that's totally acceptable. And see what but what you don't fucking do is you show up to Warriors practice the next day and say, "Hey, Steph Curry, you missed every single shot you took last night. Let me show you how to change your shot." Who the fuck are you to tell Steph Curry, one of the best three-point shooters, how to change his shot because he had one bad game? Or for example, I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. If Josh Allen in pressure moment fumbles the football or throws an interception or overthrows a receiver, who am I as just a Monday morning quarterback to come to one Bills Drive practice facility and say, Josh, here's what you need to do. Here's how you need to throw the ball to make sure that doesn't happen again. Who am I? I've never played football. I've never played basketball. Who would I be if I showed up and tried to tell a professional athlete how to do their job? The stuff that they've trained for years and years and years to do. And in the same right, all I'm saying is, who are you as a wrestling fan, someone who's never worked the ring, someone who's never gone through the curtain, who's never laced up the boots, who hasn't worked backstage at a wrestling show? All you have is a fucking podcast and an opinion. Who are you to say that Kenny Omega should not do this move or that move or any other goddamn move that he wants to do? Yeah, you can complain. Yeah, you can say that could have ended in a bad situation. Yeah, you can say that maybe he should limit the amount of Tiger drivers he takes. But to go there and tell him that he's an unsafe worker and a poor wrestler because he decides that he's going to risk his body to entertain the crowd? No. Who are we? We're just the fucking fans. We have a part in the act. We have a part in the show, and that's to cheer for the wrestlers, to be entertained. If you're not entertained by Tiger drivers, turn the fucking channel. Stop talking about it, because nobody gives a fuck what you think. Your opinion's not, the 10 Commandments. And my opinion neither. I have no supreme ruling. This is just my thoughts on my podcast, but I'm not going out there and saying that X, Y, and Z should do this, that, and the other. If you have a problem with AEW being quote-unquote unsafe, then turn the channel. Stop watching. It might not be for you. It might be, Rocky Road ice cream when you prefer cookies and cream. Watch what you enjoy. There are fans that enjoy that and appreciate Kenny Omega taking that move. Kenny Omega himself has said, shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. He's the professional. You're just some Monday morning quarterback who's watching from the comfort of your own couch. Lace up the boots. Is it an elevated risk that he's taking those Tiger drivers? Yes. But he's the professional. You wouldn't tell Steph Curry how to shoot a jump shot. You wouldn't tell Ronald Acuna how to swing his bat. You wouldn't tell Clayton Kershaw how to pitch a strike, how to pitch a fastball. So why are you going to tell a pro wrestler what moves he should or shouldn't do? When you're just sitting there on the couch and you're just a fan or you're in the stands, you haven't laced up the boots. And so I'm going to end it this way. Let's end the division in the wrestling community. Let's end the division. Let's not have IWC or CWC or, what other pissing contest that you think you need to have. See, I loved pro wrestling. I loved going to WrestleMania for that week because for once it felt like there wasn't no division along some sort of political lines, and yet now it seems like there is. There's some sort of political line. Like you have to make a political point to get, bonus points with some dude with clout on TikTok. Like, no, fuck that. I'm going to have my opinion regardless. Let's just be wrestling fans and enjoy these performers. Give us this form of entertainment that we enjoy. Why does it have to be one side or the other? I prefer AEW, yes. My favorite wrestler is Kenny Omega. You can tell from the intro of the podcast that Kenny Omega is one of my favorites. I like the Young Bucks. Fuck me in the ass twice a week for that if that's a problem with you. But like, I don't care. It's my opinion. Wrestling is subjective. There's no objective right or wrong on who's the best and who's not. It's dependent on the individual. You may not like Kenny Omega. You may like him. I, for one, don't like Roman Reigns. That doesn't mean that he's, the top dog in the WWE right now, or he shouldn't be the top dog. I don't know who should be the top dog. I don't make those decisions. Let's sit there and you can critique what goes on between the ring. You can, but don't question the efficacy or the greatness of a wrestler based off you not liking the move. Just like I can criticize the booking, the outcome of a match. Like, for example, and see, I've been told that, all you do is defend AEW. You never criticize them. So let me criticize them for a couple minutes. I still think it's been almost fucking 4 years now since Dynamite started. And the women's division in AEW is still the most underutilized division in the entire company. I think, and All Out, I think it was in Chicago, they should have had the Acclaim to win the tag titles there over Swerve in Their Glory instead of the week after at Arthur Ashe. I can continue going. I think that the treatment of Thunder Rosa from Britt Baker and all of the people in the back is misaligned, and I don't know why they hate Thunder Rosa, but Thunder Rosa is one of the best in the industry right now in women's wrestling. And I can praise WWE. I've straight up said that the last couple weeks of this Bloodline story have been pretty fucking entertaining. But just because 1% of something is good and I praise that, but I shit on the other 99%, or the opposite, if I praise 99% of AEW but shit on 1% of it, doesn't mean that I'm a dick rider for one and I absolutely hate the other. I just, at this moment in time, I prefer one flavor over the other. And is that a problem? No. So let's stop the division in the wrestling industry, dude. And as a fan, let's stop trying to hold one side or the other, because wrestling is for everybody. Everybody should be allowed to support and like and cheer for whomever the fuck they want, without anybody criticizing their choice. You like one over the other, so be it. You like the other over one, so be it. But don't sit here and act like you have some moral high ground and won't pretend that you actually give a fuck about somebody's safety. Because if Kenny Omega died in the ring, like I said earlier, they'd be there long enough to do the 10-bell salute, but then they'd be like, I told you he was going to kill himself in the ring. Same thing with Darby Allin. Oh, Darby Allin's going to coffin drop himself and paralyze himself. And then if it actually did happen, they'd be like, I told you, give me my brownie points because I was right. Someone's actually fucking hurt or someone actually fucking died, but give me my brownie points first because I was fucking right. Like, if you were actually concerned about someone's, health, like, to me, it's just a facade. It's just a mask. It's for you to get some sort of clout and to have a adverse opinion to a group of people that you don't like because they get more clout than you on TikTok. That's what it feels like to me. It's a pissing match to see who can piss the longest or who can have the longest stream or whose dick is longer. Like, who gives a fuck? Hold your opinion. But don't sit here and say you're a casual fan and have like fantasy wrestling and podcasts and Discords and TikToks and everything that a hardcore fan would have dedicated to pro wrestling, and yet say you're a casual fan. Like, bullshit. We're all wrestling fans. Have your podcast, but don't hide behind this label of I'm a casual fan and you hardcore fans don't love us casual fans. You got to. I don't understand what a casual fan is. It's either you're a fan or you're not. Like I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. I would never say I'm a casual Bills fan or a hardcore. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. I'll ride and die with that team. They're my favorite team in the NFL. But like, I'm not hardcore anything or softcore this or casual this. Like, I'm just a Bills fan. I'm just a wrestling fan. I have my preferences and styles of wrestling, and you can too. There's work to do in the community. And that's all I got to say about that. Let me know what y'all think. I'm going to get off my soapbox and get back to watching some SmackDown, y'all. It's Junkyard James. I hope y'all have a good night. Until next time, this has been The Junkyard.